Workers, families, took to the streets. They didn't march with guns. They marched with signs, with chants, with dreams. Dreams for dignity. Dreams for change. Dreams for a life free from fear. At first, the protests were peaceful. They began in the bazaars of Tehran, then rippled out to every corner of the country, from Mashhad to Shiraz, from Kurdistan to the deserts of Sistan-Baluchistan. Millions of voices, united by frustration over skyrocketing inflation, economic collapse, and a yearning for basic human rights. What started as protests over bread and survival quickly became calls for political reform and an end to decades of clerical rule. But the government did not hear them. Instead of listening, it escalated. Instead of dialogue, it responded with weapons. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, was unleashed. Regular forces and paramilitaries flooded the streets. They didn't disperse crowds. They opened fire on them. Because of an internet and communications blackout imposed by the state, the full scale of the violence is hard to determine. But credible human rights groups say the figures are already grim, and possibly far worse than any official tally. According to multiple rights monitors, more than 538 people have been killed in the crackdown, including at least 490 protesters and dozens of security personnel. Other activist networks report at least 544 deaths and over 10,600 arrests. Independent NGOs say the actual number of protester deaths could be significantly higher, and informally estimated numbers even suggest figures into the thousands, though such figures cannot be reliably confirmed due to the blackout. Imagine that for a moment. Voices raised in peaceful protest, cut down by gunfire. Families distraught, searching for loved ones. Hospitals overwhelmed with the wounded. Morgues filled beyond capacity. And behind it all, silence. The silence of an internet turned off. Of truth hidden from the world. Of a government determined to erase what is happening. This isn't a clash with armed insurgents. These are people without rifles. People with nothing but their courage and their convictions. And yet the response has been brutal. Live ammunition, mass arrests, beatings, disappearances. Footage that did make it out through smuggled phones shows children crying, bodies carried from streets, and crowds trying to protect one another. Pictures too harrowing to dismiss. Voices too filled with grief to ignore. Some experts warn that the true death toll may never be known. Not while the government controls communications and information. Not while bodies are removed without transparent records. Not while the world watches through fragments. This is not merely a domestic disturbance. This is one of the most serious internal challenges to Iran's clerical rulers in decades. Perhaps since the revolution of 1979. And in response, the authorities, rather than seeking peaceful resolution, have doubled down. There are reports of mass rallies staged in support of the regime. Funerals turned into political statements. And the government declaring days of mourning for security personnel killed. Meanwhile, the world has begun to react. Foreign governments have condemned the violence. International organizations have called for restraint. But for those caught in the streets of Tehran, Isfahan, and beyond, condemnation doesn't stop bullets. And the Iranian people continue to face a stark choice. To remain silent and survive. Or to speak out and risk everything. This is the price paid by those who stood up for freedom. This is the cost of raising a voice. In the face of a regime that refuses to hear it. The streets of Iran are stained with suffering. But they are also marked with courage. And the world must remember that behind every number, every casualty count, every arrest, every life lost, there were dreams. Dreams of freedom. Dreams of dignity. Dreams that will not be forgotten.